I'm very well, Jessyca. Greetings from Berlin.
From Berlin. Okay, we're doing a Seattle to Berlin broadcast today. And so tell us a little bit about Berlin.
Berlin is wintry and cold. It's already dark here, and it's my favorite city in Germany. So I moved here after high school and then 2 times more, and now I'm here to stay, I think.
Okay, and I'm on the other side of the world in Seattle, which is also rainy and cold, and we have lots of hills and cars were sliding down the street with the ice last week. And so it's morning here. It is 10:07 a.m. and it's still kind of dark, but that's the Pacific Northwest. So, okay, I'll start a little bit here. So here I am with my wine notes, my wine spectator, and my Starbucks cup. Of course, my Starbucks cup is from Seattle. We are speaking in front of a live international audience. I have a live broadcast that broadcasts on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Also, will be coming on Instagram and Twitter right now. And this is going to be live streamed, and you're also able to ask questions. I also do live broadcast, so we'll plan in the future to do a live broadcast, and people can also ask questions live. So we're going to talk a little bit about Johannes, and he is the CEO of Sommelier.bot. It helps people find the perfect bottle in stores, online shops, and hotels across Europe and the United States, building on the recent advances in AI and its mission to elevate the wine experiences. And so it'll be fun to talk about your company and AI. So why don't we start by talking about your work history?
Yeah, so my work history started here in Berlin, actually, after growing up in a town called Bochum in the Ruhr Valley, which is really coal and steel country. I moved to Berlin just after high school and did an apprenticeship in a fine department store called Kaufhaus des Westens, or Department Store of the West. It was built during the Cold War to sort of showcase the goods, food and wine and also other things of the West to the poor East Germans. Back then, the wall was still up. This was in the mid 80s. And I worked in the food and wine department. So Kaufhaus des Westens is the second largest department store in Europe, second only to Harrods in London. And it used to and still has a very fine food and wine department. And I discovered wine there and then had a chance to work again as an apprentice or as a cellar rat in a winery in the Sierra Foothills in Yuba County, actually, under a German winemaker. The winery was called Renaissance, is no longer operating. But back then I worked for 2 years in the cellar and then also in the vineyard as a pruner and basic vineyard laborer. So I learned a lot about wine production back then, and I realized that actually making wine is different from drinking wine, and I was more interested in the latter, to be honest. And so I got back into retail. I worked in a fine wine store in San Francisco called John Walker and Company. That was in the financial district. It was sort of a premier, a bit old-fashioned, very traditional wine store that was frequented by the people who worked in the financial district and also tourists. Back then, this was the late 80s. A lot of Japanese people buying fine wine. And that was frustrating to me because as a salesperson, I actually couldn't afford to buy these fantastic wines that were leaving the store by the case. And actually, at the end of my tenure there, I owed the shop money because I had charged so many wines to my account that I not only did not get paid, but had to pay them. So I was still living in the Sierra Foothills back then, and I met my wife, and we decided that we wanted a change of scene, and then moved to New York City, where I completed my studies. I was and still am very interested in the humanities, literature, creative writing. So I attended the New School for Social Research in New York City, in the Village, and worked in wine stores on the side. I worked in America's oldest wine store at the time, Eka, Merrill and Condit on the Upper West Side. That store now is a auction house and still sells wines. And I also worked for a store on the East Side. And during that time, this was the late 80s, the wall came down in 1989. So I heard about this reading the New York Times, and I felt I was missing some of the action. So I decided with my wife to move back to Berlin, actually. And then I left the wine business and worked as a consultant. I worked in economic development in East Germany, and decided after a couple of years to go back to the US to get a master's degree, and got that from Yale University. And then by that time, I had two young children, and I wanted to wanted the kids to be in touch with their grandparents. So we moved back to Germany first, to Hamburg, and then later to Denmark. And I still yearn to be in touch with wine, but had given up on the idea of being in business because, as they say, how do you make a big fortune in the wine business? You have to, no other way. How do you make a small fortune in the wine business? You have to start with a big one. That's what people used to say. So I became an entrepreneur in order to pursue at least a small fortune. And basically, that's what I've been doing the last 20 years. And when I sold my last company, which was an e-commerce company, I decided to get back into wine. And the idea was to build a digital version of what I used to do in the wine stores in Germany and also the US. And that's how the Sommelier.bot came into being. It's basically a digital version of a salesperson that helps people find the right bottle for the occasion.
Okay. So okay. So what are your thoughts on the future of wine? So what do you see happening? I know you're interested in artificial intelligence, and I think it's really interesting too. And then there's some scary features of it. So what are your thoughts there? What do you see in the future of wine?
Okay, I think the future of wine is bright, actually, also because of artificial intelligence. There have been a lot of changes in the industry, and we see younger people turn away from the category, both in Europe and also in the States. And one reason for that is the complexity of wine in general. So it has always been my objective to reduce that complexity, to explain to people what kind of wines they should choose, and to also build a bridge for younger people. And I think with the recent advances in technology, this has become much more easy. So now you have a lot of information at your fingertips, not in the form of sort of difficult to browse information that is very difficult to access, but actually in a conversational mode. And that's what makes me very excited and optimistic about the future of wine, because I feel that knowledge about wine is best communicated in form of a conversation, and obviously with ChatGPT and the other models out there, this is the mode they function in. And I think it's great because now engagement of people and interacting with people about wine has become much easier.
Okay. And so your ChatGPT, food and wine pairing, how do you see that working?
So since we founded the Sommelier.bot, I Actually, I'm working with a team of French people. My CTO and also my COO are both from France, and they're called Timothy and Clément. And Timothy comes from an old wine trading house in Burgundy. And we have been following the AI development over the last 2 or 3 years. And actually, before ChatGPT, we tried to build our own machine learning system with the help of what's out there, and uh, realized that it was a big investment, too big for us as a bootstrap company. And in particular, wine pairing has been a benchmark because we have sort of a basic understanding of which wine goes with which dish, and we have seen how, in particular, ChatGPT has become better and better in pairing. And at this point, I would say that the technology is definitely on par with what I would aspire to as a advisor or a guide through the world of wine and food. But the issue is still one of performance. So in order to really utilize the best that AI can do in terms of wine pairing on the basis of a specific inventory, we are not yet there to really make it practical. And this is different from just punching in general information about a certain dish and having uh, the AI recommend maybe a varietal or region. That works fine. But when it comes to recommending a specific wine, the AI is very careful. And with our clients, we obviously want the AI to choose a wine from a specific inventory. And there, the interfaces and the APIs are still kind of slow. So we've decided to pursue a hybrid approach that uses some AI and then some rule-based system that basically guides people through buttons and clicks.
So I'm an entrepreneur, but I hear that you are an entrepreneur. So when you have an idea, how do you get this up and running? How do you put the team together? How do you start with your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Yeah, good question. So I'm a bootstrapping guy. So I have co-founded several companies, and I'm not going to lie about it. As has always been very tough and challenging, and finding the right people is maybe the most difficult part of it. Finding the financing for it and going all in, which I have been doing over the years, is another aspect of it. So where to start? I say the start is to find something that I burn for and that I'm really excited about. And this is easier said than done because I have several areas I'm interested in and several ideas. And then to focus on one is the first challenge. And I think Warren Buffett said once that the biggest enemies of your top priority are not things that you're not interested in, but are actually things that you are very interested in, but are not on the top of the list. So priority number 3 to 5 is probably the biggest challenge when you want to get something off the ground. So I would say, focus on something that you are really excited about is the first step. And the second step is finding the right people. And there it's trial and error. I have started with, like, the Sommelier.bot is a good example. I've been through several iterations with different people and different technologies. And for the last 3 years, I was just lucky uh, finding a team that clicks and that also brings the technological and the wine expertise that I need.
I find being an entrepreneur, it doesn't stop. And sometimes I find that to be very tiresome. Like,
Yeah.
it just keeps going and I keep getting ideas and I keep working. And it's like, okay, I just need to kind of rest my brain a little bit. Okay. So if I were to use Sommelier.bot, tell me how that process would work. How do I find it? What do I do? What does it look like? And what would be my experience?
Okay, so you'll find it on the website Sommelier.bot, and the way the technology works is that it's widget based. So it's being placed on websites through a JavaScript line of code. It's very lean. It's just a line of code that you can integrate in the footer of a website or a shop software such as Shopify or many others. And then basically it connects to a fully customizable and scalable system that takes a wine inventory and tags it. And this is still being done manually by our sommeliers, but will in the future be done by the AI. So in order for the system to know what kind of wine to recommend for any given occasion, the inventory has to be tagged. And we use sort of standard categories such as varietal and region, but also some proprietary tags that have to do with psychographics. Is this something for an experienced wine connoisseur or more something for a beginner? And then also, what is the profile? What are the characteristics of the wine in terms of style and age worthiness and so forth? So we have to touch every single SKU. And then once this is done, there is a conversation design that is standardized, that clients get out of the box, and that can then be customized. But we use standard occasions like gifting, buying a wine for a friend, for everyday drinking is another occasion, or to put away in the cellar is another one. And of course, wine pairing in terms of food. There's a database of thousands of dishes that then matches the wines that are in the inventory. And as somebody interacts with the sommelier bot, they are guided through this conversation, and then dynamically behind the scenes, the relevant wines are being sorted so that within 30 seconds or so, no matter what your occasion is, you'll have a recommendation from the client's inventory. And then this recommendation links to the product page of the shop, and then people can purchase the wine.
And okay, and what I want to ask you too, I know there's a lot of fear about AI.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lot of positivity. What do you think the fears are as opposed to what the positive side effects of this are?
Yeah. So when I think about AI, I think of actually a German poem called The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and your audience in the US might know this poem
Disney.
from Disney, exactly,
Yeah.
from the Fantasia movie. So
Yes.
I think this story is really significant and meaningful when it comes to AI, because if you remember the story, you have Mickey Mouse, you have the magician, and Mickey Mouse is the apprentice, right? The way I was an apprentice, food and wine salesman 40 years ago. And when I think of AI, basically AI is the hat that Mickey puts on his head, and that I have put on my head to basically power my ability as an apprentice. And then this is fantastic because Mickey was able to charm the broom and have the broom do the basic things that an apprentice has to do, and which I had to do both in the store and in the wineries, meaning cleaning tanks, cleaning barrels, mopping the floor, brooming, cleaning bottles, whatever. And these basic tasks, and metaphorically speaking, can now be done by AI and ChatGPT. Some people call it Head GPT, maybe because of this analogy of the head. But this is the advantage. But the risk and the fear that people have is also very nicely portrayed in this story, namely that suddenly the broom develops a life of its own. And this is, of course, the famous paperclip story with AI. What if the broom basically just takes over and does what it wants, and maybe even multiplies and is then unstoppable? And to be honest, in my world of wine recommendation, the risk of something going totally wrong is fairly small because the downside isn't that big. But even we experience it that, for example, the AI might recommend a wine that is not in the inventory of our client. It might actually recommend something that is not for sale, and thereby drive people away from the selection and maybe to another merchant. So this is, I think, a small risk compared to the global challenges related to AI, but maybe this serves as an example.
I'm in Seattle, and I've had there's a coffee shop in Seattle that's AI, and you come in and you order your coffee and it's served by robots, and so there's no people there. And then Amazon, I know that I know Germany's very technologically savvy. Amazon Go, there's no employees, so you go in the store, you purchase your food, you walk out, it charges your Amazon account, and there might be one employee there that's handling just, I don't know what to do when I get here, but otherwise you just pick up your food and you walk out the door. And that was kind of such an odd experience, both of them. So I'm going to the coffee shop with the robotics, and I think you come in and you order on the computer, and then the robots make the coffee for you and they give it to you. So as soon as I do that, I'll get that to you.
That's great. So often I'm asked, well, are you competing with with sommeliers out there? And in terms of the potential of AI and also the downsides, it's still the case that when it comes to edge cases, like if you're in a fine dining environment and you need a recommendation that really fits the dish, the sauce, the way the dish was prepared, then I would say that humans are still far superior to AI wine pairing. And this is going to continue to be the case because the AI plays it safe, so to speak, and gives maybe the lowest common denominator in terms of recommendation. So I think there will always be a space for human sommeliers, so to speak, and our product is maybe best suited for people who don't really have a chance to employ a sommelier or a very seasoned, experienced wine salesperson. And there, the Sommelier.bot actually fits best. We have clients that have sommeliers on site, but want to offer a guide for the instances where there's nobody around. For instance, a hotel, that the sommelier is in the restaurant in the evening, but what about during the day? And what about if a guest wants to reserve a wine or take one along or order one onto into her room, and there a digital sommelier can really add value.
And I think it's really nice if you're at home. I mean, I think it would be a wonderful thing during COVID. So do you want to talk a little bit about COVID? So we started with COVID and we're here now. And what did that do for you in regard to starting a business?
Yeah, so
this idea.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually launched kind of in the middle of COVID in 2021 in the spring, and during that time, e-commerce was booming. People couldn't leave their home in the way they were used to. At least here in Germany, we actually had rules that only two people could actually meet outside and stuff like that. And a lot of our clients found that they were doing really brisk business during that time. People were bored, and so they ordered wine online. And then after the opening, which everybody was very grateful for, e-commerce stagnated and actually plummeted a little bit, at least in the online wine space. So we were able to win a lot of clients in 2021 and 2022, but then 2023 came along and people saw their sales flatten and even decline. So a lot of first movers found themselves kind of, ooh, what do we do now? And actually, this past year has been very challenging for online wine shops in Germany and in Europe. We suffer when our clients suffer. So the last year was challenging from a business perspective, but let's not forget that we survived the pandemic and have a lot to be grateful for.
And I think also I started this broadcast during the pandemic. And so it evolved over 3 different stages and it's still evolving. But one of them, I can now do the broadcast live. This will be airing as a live stream, but if we do it live, people can interact with us while we're talking. So there's another evolution of that. Okay, so why don't you talk a little bit about German wine? What are your favorite German wines that you might recommend?
I love German wines. Obviously, I'm very partial.
Wines. If they're not German wines, your favorite wines.
Yeah, so I love the German cabinets because they are light and embody what I love about German whites, namely the balance between fruit and sweetness and acidity. And there's one particular region within the larger Mosel region where this sort of pinpoint precision and balance is really perfect for my personal taste. And those are the wines from the Saar. And the most famous of those is also one of the most expensive wine in Germany, namely Egon Müller's, the Riesling from the Schatzhofberg vineyard. And I don't get to taste those wines a lot, but there are smaller wineries all along the river that also have this lightness and this precision along with a low alcohol and then this ethereal acidity that I love. And so I would encourage anybody to search out the wines from the Saar within the Mosel region, which is also full of great names and great wines.
Oh, I'd love to sit on the river and drink Riesling or lovely wines. That sounds lovely. Now, I know that you need to go have dinner. So what's for dinner tonight?
Actually, I have a chicken dish that I'm going to warm up because I didn't have time to prepare it. And I'm going to have a German Scheurebe with it, which is a underestimated varietal that is popular in Germany, but not much seen outside of Germany. And again, it has the Riesling typical balance between acidity and fruitiness, just in a different varietal. It's a less known and less esteemed varietal, the Scheurebe is, than the Riesling, but it can be equally enjoyable.
And do you want to just real quickly before we go, do you want to talk a little bit about a couple of things that people might want to see in Germany?
Yeah, so I started this broadcast with Berlin. I think I'm going to end it with Berlin. So even though I'm not from here, I think the city is the most cosmopolitan place in Germany, and it's just has a lovely variety of culture, also food culture, and things to do. And so if you are looking for an urban experience, by all means come to Berlin. If you are looking for beautiful countryside, I'd have to say that Munich and the area around Munich is just lovely. Now, and when you're looking for wine country, then by all means go to the Mosel region and check out the beautiful estates there.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Johannes. I'm so glad to talk to you today.
Likewise, Jessyca.
Auf
Have a great day.
Wiedersehen.
All right. Cheers. Auf Wiedersehen.